Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of May, 2025. I'm Gianni DePoce, your host, and I'm joined this week by Rashad Phillips. Rashad, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I hope you are too.
Thank you, and it's great to have you on. I actually just became aware of who you were a few months ago. I think it was back in January or December. We did a Twitter Spaces session together, and you made an exceptional call on the market volatility this year, specifically within the context of Venus retrograde. So I wanted to have you on here, talk to us about that, and talk about what else you see going forward. So thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, it's great to have you. Let's get into the charts here, starting off by looking at the Dow. We did just have the Fed announcement. Rates are not changing, but we have the press conference coming up soon. So, what's your take on what's happening in the stock market now? Do you think there's more pain ahead, or do you think the worst is behind us?
More pain ahead. I think Powell is powerless. This is out of his control, and it's been too much market manipulation with the rates. And I'm specifically referring to the Federal Reserve and their zero interest rate policy. They held it at zero for far too long, and now they're going to have a very difficult time containing the rates. And they're definitely going to face challenges from bond vigilantes over the next 2 to 5 years.
So, any particular geocosmic signatures that you're looking at for timing that would maybe lead us to a bottom? Because you're saying, more pain ahead. When do you think that pain might end, specifically when it comes to geocosmics?
There was two major windows. The two major windows. I'm mainly focusing on the S&P 500, S&P 500's natal chart.
Okay.
And so we got a window in June. Now, had you spoken to me in December, I would have suspected the bottom would have occurred by June. Uh, I've had more time to research, and you got a second window that's happening at the end of the year and the beginning of next year. So it's a big wide range because we're dealing with slow moving Pluto and we're also dealing with Uranus. So it's a wide range starting June the 15th, around the time of the triple witch expiration through February of next year. We're
Okay.
not out of the woods until that time period has elapsed.
That's interesting. So, starting in June, of course, we have that third and final Jupiter-Saturn square. There's also Jupiter squared Neptune. So,
Mhm.
do you think that aspect or those two aspects has a lot to do with the more pain ahead?
I think that's a marker for the beginning. So back in when we did our Twitter spaces, the time period that I was really focusing on, which is February and March, that's the beginning. That's just another opportunity. I don't see this ending until this time period is up. I think people are so used to a quick fix, and they're not like most of these traders are prepared to trade the market that they've already traded, not the current market that we're in. We're in a new cycle. It's not the cycle of the past. It's not the
Well,
cycle where the Fed's going to be able to fix
yeah.
stuff easily.
Well, when you have all these outer planetary sign changes, this month you have Saturn going into Aries. You have Uranus set to go into Gemini in July. You already have Neptune in Aries as well. Pluto's in Aquarius too. So it is very much a new era. So is that pretty much what you're referring to here?
Yes, and then it's going to retrograde back into Taurus. I mean, we're not out of the clear of banking crisis, credit crisis until Uranus moves into Gemini. When it retrogrades back into Taurus, that final pass could be very challenging.
So I do want to bring up TLT, the long-term Treasury ETF, because you mentioned the bond vigilantes. It's interesting here. We do a lot of cycle work, and we're kind of in in a gray zone here because you had that pretty impressive bottom back in October of 2023, which has held. So we're almost about a year and a half now into this rally as weak as it's been overall. So you think, when you say bond vigilantes, I take that as interest rates are going to continue to rise, the Fed's not going to be able to stop it, and bond prices are going lower. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's a strong possibility for that to occur. That's a very strong. I mean, the bond vigilantes have been in hibernation the whole time during zero interest rate
Yeah.
policy. That policy is over. And I mean, just to be clear, Jay Powell officially said it was over himself as well.
Yeah.
So it's
And I
not
think
my
that,
opinion. It's the opinion of Jay Powell.
yeah. Well, I think that speaks a lot to Pluto and Aquarius, right? It's a new era for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whole new era.
Yeah.
Whole new era.
Okay. So do you think the Fed is going to cut this year, or do you think they're going to stay put?
I think they only cut when the crash shows up. Until the crash shows up, they're not going to cut.
Okay.
They
So you
don't. They
think,
don't have. They're not in a position to cut because of all of the unex. I mean, the Fed usually is based off of rate expectations. With the current environment we're in, how can we have a clear expectation?
yeah,
There isn't one.
right. Right. Well, let's take a look at crude oil as well, because we've seen energy prices really start to drop off. Usually a sign of economic weakness, demand slowing, there's that whole drill baby drill stuff. Saturn's now out of Pisces for now, going to retrograde back into that. Or excuse me, Saturn's going to be going into Aries in a couple of weeks. Eventually we'll be retrograding back into Pisces later this year. Any targets on crude oil? Anything you're looking at specifically in this market? I mean, you do have Neptune and Aries now, so what are you looking at in the energy space?
I'm just focused mainly on the 9 year cycle. So 9 years ago, we had a big bust, uh, with the drillers who were drilling here. It affected the real estate markets where all the drill baby drill activity was happening then. And until that 9 year cycle is complete, I don't think we're out of the woods.
So you're using that low from 2016.
Yes.
So you think we're falling into a 9 year cycle though this year?
Correct. That's possible. That's very, very possible. And that speaks to major pain where all of these markets, because I see a connection between my lens is really the real estate market. I see a connection between these oil markets and the real estate markets because where big oil went, it usually inflates the real estate
Yeah.
values and everything around it. When that comes down, it causes a collapse in those markets.
Yeah, I mean, you look at places like in Midland, Texas, for example, right? Same
Hmm.
idea.
Hmm.
Very good. Let's jump over to precious metals. Take a look at gold here because, gold has been the shining star of uptrends in 2025. Silver has lagged behind somewhat. So what are you looking at from a geocosmic standpoint in precious metals? And do you think the uptrend can continue?
I think the uptrend continues until the crash happens. When the
Okay.
rest of the markets crash, I
Yeah.
think they're only going to sell gold because of a liquidity crisis, not
That's
because
usually what
gold
happens.
isn't valuable, but
Yeah.
because of liquidity issues. But
Do you have any?
the central banks have been hoarding gold for the
Yeah.
last 3 years.
Yeah.
The general public wasn't catching on because they were in a crypto phase.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Do you have any targets for gold?
I don't have any targets. I'm tracking it. To be honest with you, I'm paying more attention to the miners. I think the miners have been unappreciated, and that's where the gold comes from. So
Yeah.
everybody's concerned about having physical gold, and I understand why the central banks are and sovereign nations are, but where the actual gold comes from, like the GDX or Barrick Gold,
Yeah.
they have not mirrored the rally that the spot price of gold has.
Right. It's yeah, you raise a really good point, and it's really amazing because typically during these precious metal bull runs, we often see shares of mining stocks outperform the spot price of gold. That hasn't happened yet. So
Hmm.
I think it's a potential opportunity for people to keep an eye on. And I've been drawing attention to the geocosmic correspondence to that. Neptune being in the sign of Aries, the sun's exalted in Aries, sun rules gold. And then in June, we have Jupiter going into Cancer. Cancer, obviously ruled by the moon, rules silver. So you're going to have two inflationary planets in Jupiter and Neptune, both in signs that correspond to precious metals. So I think that the uptrend in miners is probably going to continue.
Yeah, that's what I'm carefully. That's why I see the opportunity. To me, the opportunity, the major opportunity from 2016 until now in gold, spot gold has passed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
I
odds of
totally agree.
another, somebody doing 10x in spot gold now is relatively
Sure.
low. But
Yeah.
the odds of, 2x, 3x in these miners is a real possibility if you're monitoring it.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. All right, let's talk about crypto because everyone wants to know what's going on in that space. We're seeing a little bit of selling now in Bitcoin here. Um, do we see more euphoria in crypto? We can even look at Ethereum. But what's your take on metals and what aspects are you looking for in this space?
Yeah, I've got rough aspects coming up for Bitcoin. I did not record the exact dates, but they've got rough aspects as it relates to Pluto coming up. It's really going to be more later in the year because the retrograde is going to happen. So after the retrograde and it moves direct, you're going to have issues again with crypto again. I suspect the Bitcoin may have some issues in the fall.
But you think for now it's okay.
In the short term, yeah, they're gonna have to monitor that. What I'm seeing now, it's almost a clear what crypto was presented or what it was sold to the public as was an alternative to the financial system.
Right.
And I'm seeing Bitcoin mirroring the S&P 500. The
Right.
move that there's in the S&P,
Yeah.
Bitcoin makes the same moves,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a leveraged like NASDAQ play almost. It's
pretty
you get
much.
bigger percentage moves both to the upside and to the downside.
Hmm.
Um, what about Ethereum? Do you think Ethereum's dead money or do you think it's ever going to make a comeback?
It just seems like that the crypto people seem to jump between these different coins. And to me, that's the thing that makes it harder. I monitor Bitcoin closer than I do Ethereum or all the rest of the coins because it's just because I see the correlation between that and S&P 500. I've got no take on Ethereum. I'm not certain.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other individual stocks at markets that you have in your radar right now?
Um, I mean, I think what's being overlooked are the leaders which aren't leading anymore, such as Apple and Amazon. And I think what's being um, not considered in light of the tariffs is Walmart. And is Walmart still going to be the leader in retail if they have issues with what's on the shelves?
That's a really good point. And as you know,
And they purchase, if I'm saying this correctly, Vizio, the TV,
yeah,
they purchased them. From my understanding, that's manufactured in China.
yeah,
So how much exposure do they have on some of these products that they've purchased where they haven't made it aware to the general public isn't aware that they own these particular companies, but they've got exposure there.
yeah.
And to me, all of the facts didn't matter during the bull run, but when these facts begin to hit your P&L, they're going to matter then.
That's usually how it works is that, the valuations and whatnot don't matter on the way up. They only matter on the way down.
Hmm.
All right. So that's good insight. Yeah. So you mentioned Apple, Amazon, Walmart, but your concern is more about their lack of performance and their downside risks, right?
Correct, correct. And the other thing I think that's not people aren't giving proper consideration to is the geopolitics.
Yeah.
So many of these companies shifted to India. The play was to leave China and to go to India. Well, now we got a war going on between India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
Who's going to negotiate that? Who's going to unpack that? And how, if the U.S. airlines cancel their flights into India, if we can't fly in India, how are you going to get the products out of India to America?
Yeah. I guess you take a long boat ride, right?
It's a long boat ride, and
Yeah.
the boat ride is trying to avoid the bombs that are coming down at the same time.
Seriously. Okay. Any bullish opportunities that you're looking for?
I think the bullish opportunities are going to be in volatility in individual stocks that are undervalued. So I think this is going to be a time where people have to shift to go to value stocks. And I think the mindset of most of the traders, they've been trading these names, they've been trading names they're comfortable with, but
Yeah.
the shift to go to find value is going to be key.
Well, on that note, we did talk about energy a little bit. One of the most valuable, or I should say, inexpensive areas of the market is in energy. And interestingly, if you look at XLE, the energy sector ETF, and actually zoom out going back to 2020, it's outperformed the technology sector. Not a lot of people would think that, but there are some good things happening in that space, especially when it comes to natural gas. I'm watching some stuff along those lines. It could be a phenomenon with Neptune and Aries. So that's another way to look at it too. But yeah, I think that if you're looking for value in inexpensive areas of the market, energy is one to keep an eye on.
I agree with you 100%, and I think the natural gas is going to be key, especially the issues that they're having in Europe
Yeah,
with access to energy because of the conflict with Russia. Until these conflicts are resolved, it's going to be a lot of stop and go, and it's going to be difficult to kind of have stability because this uncertainty from these conflicts, and they're not being wrapped up quickly. This whole thing in the Ukraine, I remember when this initially happened, people said, "Oh, this will be over in 6 months. Oh, it'll be over in 2 weeks."
here we are almost 3 years later, right?
Yeah,
2.5 years later. Yeah. Great. Well, any final thoughts, any last commentary you want to provide from an astrological standpoint or any other markets?
Yes, I think I'm gonna go away from Astro for a moment and just go to Main Street. I'm a tax accountant by trade, so I get to see what's going on in Main Street, and I get to look into my clients' financial affairs that people can't see on Facebook, social media, or their friends and family are even aware of. And this issue with the student loans is a significant issue. The way, and I'm looking at this through the lens of real estate and the auto market. If these students are required to pay back the loans, and I know it gets political, I'm not getting into the politics part. What
Sure.
I'm referring to is them just paying those loans or repaying their student loans. If they are required to make those large payments, how are they going to be able to purchase a home and
Mm.
how are they going to be able to purchase a car? And
Yeah.
so that next generation for the next 20 years, when they're paying student loan payments, and some of them put their loans in deferment, so it may be 25 years or maybe 30 years that they have to pay this back.
Yeah.
That all of those buyers are pulled out of the market.
Yeah.
So that's going to have a major long-term effect that most people have not considered. And also, if they're making those kind of large payments, how much money will they be able to contribute to the financial markets if they're going to be individual traders or long-term investors for their own personal retirement?
Just making me think, that I see that as Pluto and Aquarius, and Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So, if you are
Yes.
talking about that duration of, the loan repayments, that's something to definitely keep an eye on
And
too.
they've got to sit out. The other issue that I think will probably come to the forefront when Jupiter goes into Cancer, the record number of homelessness. We've had record homelessness in the US for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And we also have, going back to Cancer, we have, and this was in the Wall Street Journal, a rising percentage of new homeless individuals who are senior citizens.
Yeah.
So this all has implications. And the part that I think this is kind of not being taken in full consideration is with the banks, because they've got credit risk exposure that people aren't taking into consideration.
Yeah.
They can snap at any moment because a lot of that stuff is being concealed.
Uranus is at the end of Taurus, so that's usually when you
Yes.
see those bubbles start to burst. So,
So that's why I'm really concerned about once Uranus goes into Gemini retrogrades, that final pass going forward could be very, very difficult.
sure. Okay. Well, Rashad, this was excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today. Where can our viewers find out more about you and your work?
They can find me on Twitter. That's usually where I post. I'm not as frequent as a poster of you as you and everyone else because I just post when I feel like it. I don't have a subscription service because I'm just I want still want to have a life. At some point, I might consider doing it, but I still like having a life. The demands of having subscribers and then having them send you all the emails and questions that you get on Twitter,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
ready to handle right now.
Sure, sure. Well, again, I just we met back at the beginning of the year, and you made an excellent call with market volatility with Venus retrograde. So I wanted to uh, you know tip my hat to you. That was a really great call that you made. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I want to bring one more thing to your attention, and
Yeah,
Gann traders will understand this. This is 96 years. So
yeah,
followers of the square of nine will know the importance of the 96 years from 1929.
yeah.
That makes this a very, very significant year. So I'm not comfortable with everything being resolved until this year is up. This year is definitely, I'm on high alert for the whole year because of that correlation to
Yep, indeed.
1929.
Excellent. Okay, well, Rashad, thanks again. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have periodic guests on and market reviews here and there. We will be publishing the monthly cycles report early next week, so you can visit www.mmacycles.com to pick up a copy of that. And of course, enrollment for the Merriman Market Timing Academy is now open. So if you want to learn more, send us a note at customerservice@mmacycles.com and we can talk. Thanks again, everyone. Rashad, pleasure having you on. Thank you.
Thanks again. Take care, buddy.